Ever get that feeling like something's just off? You know, like
Huh.
behind all the, the perfectly manicured lawns and the friendly waves, there's this darkness lurking beneath the surface.
Right.
That's the kind of unsettling vibe we're diving into today
Yeah.
with the Coleman family murders.
It's a story that just grabs you and makes you wonder, like, how well do we actually know the people around us?
Right.
Especially when we're talking about, seemingly devout people
Yeah.
like Chris Coleman,
Head of security, no less.
right, for Joyce Meyer Ministries.
Yeah, it's almost like the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. So our source material today, let's just call it pasted text,
Sure.
lays out the whole tragic story, the murders of Chris's wife Sheri and their two young sons Garrett and Gavin.
Right.
But today we're not just going to rehash the details. We're going to try to understand like the why.
The why, yeah.
What could push a seemingly ordinary man to such extremes?
And that's what makes this case so interesting. Because when you start peeling back the layers of Chris's life, you find this constant tension between who he was and who he wanted everyone to believe he was.
It's like we've all got our little secrets, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But this goes way beyond hiding like a stash of candy from the kids.
Oh, yeah, this is a whole other lever.
This is building an entire life on a foundation of, well, maybe not lies,
Yeah.
but carefully curated truths, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the pasted text does a really good job of highlighting those contrasting narratives. So you've got Chris, raised in this strict evangelical home.
Right.
Parents are pastors, the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards, yeah.
And then you have Sheri, who's from a much more secular background.
Right.
Which already hints at, like, some potential conflicts, simmering beneath the surface.
Yeah, like how much of who we are is shaped by where we come from? Did those fundamental differences between Chris and Sheri, contribute to those cracks in their marriage?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the elephant in the room, Joyce Meyer.
Right.
Not just any televangelist, but one who preaches prosperity theology.
Right.
Can you unpack that a little bit for our listeners?
Sure.
And maybe tie it back into Chris's story?
So prosperity theology is this belief that financial blessings are a sign of God's favor.
Okay.
And the more you give to the church, the more blessings you'll receive. And we're talking material wealth here.
Okay.
It's a very controversial doctrine,
Yeah.
especially when you have someone like Joyce Meyer who enjoys a lavish lifestyle, with the private jet, extravagant headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
And she's one preaching it.
So here's Chris, right? Working for someone who embodies this very controversial doctrine, while he's also trying to maintain this image of the perfect Christian family, you can almost feel the pressure cooker situation building.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's important to note that this isn't just about personal belief. It's about this pressure to conform, to maintain appearances, especially within certain religious communities.
Yeah.
That theme, I think, kind of weaves its way through this entire case.
Right. So we've got this backdrop of religious pressure, a marriage that's maybe not as idyllic as it seems,
Yeah.
and then things take a dark turn when another woman enters the picture and some really disturbing threats.
Yeah. So this is where the pasted text really starts laying out the puzzle pieces.
Okay.
So Chris begins an affair with Tara Lentz.
Okay.
And Tara represents, she's a complete departure from his devout image.
Mm-hmm.
Almost immediately after a trip to Florida where he met with Tara.
Oh, wow.
Both Chris and Joyce Meyer start receiving threatening emails.
You don't have to be a detective to find that timing a little bit suspicious.
No, not at all.
It's almost like someone's trying to create a narrative, a diversion.
Right. And while the investigation into the threats is ongoing, Chris's personal life is imploding.
Okay.
He tells Sheri he wants a divorce.
Oh, wow.
That, she and the boys are holding him back from his career aspirations.
Whoa, hold up. So not only is he having an affair, but he's essentially blaming his family for his unhappiness.
Yeah.
That's cold.
It really does give you some insight into his mindset
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that Sheri wasn't just passively accepting this.
Okay.
She confided in friends about the problems at home, her fear that Chris might be having an affair.
Right.
She even mentioned that Chris wouldn't let the boys sleep over at a friend's house the night before the murders.
Oh, okay. Now that sends chills down my spine. It's like he knew what was coming and was already taking steps to isolate his family.
Yeah. It's a chilling detail.
And then the unthinkable happens, and the pasted text doesn't shy away from describing the horrific scene.
Yeah.
The brutality, the spray-painted messages, it's all designed to shock and mislead.
It's a very calculated act.
Yeah.
A performance, meant to create this chaos and deflect any suspicion.
But as the investigation unfolds, cracks start to appear in Chris's carefully constructed facade.
You can try to control the narrative, but the truth always has a way of coming out.
Precisely.
And as we delve deeper into the evidence, those cracks become gaping holes, exposing the man behind the mask.
Ooh. Well, let's take a quick pause here, and when we come back, we'll unravel that web of deceit that led to Chris Coleman's downfall. Because the truth, as they say, is often stranger than fiction.
It certainly is in this case. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about those cracks in Chris Coleman's story, the ones that ultimately led to his downfall. And, sometimes it's those tiny inconsistencies that can unravel an entire web of deception.
It's like that saying, the devil is in the details.
Right.
And in this case, those details were everywhere. His alibi falls apart.
Right.
And the physical evidence, like the spray paint and that piece of twine, directly linked him to the crime scene.
Yeah. The pasted text goes into a lot of detail about the forensic evidence. And it's fascinating how those seemingly insignificant bits of information become these crucial pieces of the puzzle. Like, for example, rigor mortis had already set in when they found the bodies,
Right.
indicating a time of death much earlier than what Chris had claimed.
It's like he thought he could outsmart the investigators, but you can't argue with science. And speaking of things you can't erase, let's talk about the digital trail that Chris left behind.
Oh, yeah. This was, back before everyone was super conscious of their online footprint.
Right.
Investigators found a treasure trove of evidence on Chris's computer and phone. Emails, photos, videos, even a document titled All About Tara.
Wow.
It painted a very different picture than the one Chris was trying to present.
And the thing that just gets me is, while all this is going on, while he's being interrogated, he's still texting Tara.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's living in this alternate reality where he can just keep juggling these two lives without any consequences.
Yeah. It speaks to a certain level of, arrogance.
Yeah.
A belief that he could somehow control the situation, even as it was clearly spiraling out of control.
Right. But the question that keeps coming back to me is why?
Right.
Why go to such extreme lengths? Why not just get a divorce?
Divorce is messy.
Sure.
But it's not exactly unheard of, even in religious circles.
Yeah.
Was he really willing to throw away his entire life, his family,
Right.
to avoid a little scandal?
That's where that spiritual criteria clause in his employment contract with Joyce Meyer Ministries becomes a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, because remember, adultery or divorce
Right.
would have cost him his high-paying job and his standing in the church.
Right.
And he had built his entire identity around this image of being the perfect Christian family man.
So he's trapped by his own ambition, by this need to maintain this facade of perfection, even if it means resorting to unthinkable acts.
And, the pasted text suggests that this wasn't just about the job. There's this sense that Chris was genuinely drawn to the power and influence that came with his position.
Right.
He wasn't content to just be the head of security.
He wanted more.
He wanted more.
It's like the classic tale of ambition gone wrong.
It is.
The pursuit of success no matter the cost. And ultimately that cost was tragically high, 3 innocent lives lost. So the trial begins, and the prosecution lays out this, really damning case.
Oh, yeah. The evidence was overwhelming. You've got the forensic analysis, the digital trail, Tara's testimony, even Joyce Meyer herself confirmed the existence of that job clause.
And yet, Chris maintains his innocence throughout the entire ordeal.
It's almost like he's become so entrenched in this web of lies that he can't even see the truth anymore.
Yeah.
It's a chilling reminder of, I think, the power of self-deception.
And it makes you think about the families that are left behind. How do you reconcile such horrific actions with the person you thought you knew? And it's especially complex with Chris's parents, who still believe in his innocence even after his conviction.
It really speaks to the enduring power of faith.
Yeah.
And the complexities of family loyalty.
And it raises questions about denial and the human capacity to compartmentalize information that just doesn't align with our beliefs.
Absolutely. We'll be right back to discuss this further.
Yeah, it really is hard to wrap your head around, how someone's reality can be so different from the truth.
Right.
Especially when that truth involves such a horrific crime.
Absolutely.
But I think that's what makes this case so compelling and maybe so disturbing for so many people.
I agree.
It forces us to confront those uncomfortable questions about human nature, like how well do we really know anyone?
Yeah.
And how much of what we see is just a carefully constructed facade.
Right. It's like we all have these masks that we wear.
It's like that saying, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but others by their actions. But in Chris's case, it seems like even his intentions were kind of twisted by this insatiable ambition.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of this case, I think.
Okay.
And that is the role of the media.
Oh, interesting.
True crime has become, such a huge cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
And cases like this one often get a lot of attention.
Right.
Do you think that intense scrutiny had any influence on the outcome?
Oh, it's tough to say for sure, but it definitely adds another layer of complexity, right?
It does.
On the one hand, media attention can be a really powerful tool for justice. Like it can shine a light on wrongdoing
Yeah,
and hold those in power accountable.
it can.
But it can also create a lot of pressure on law enforcement and the justice system.
Oh, yeah.
Like it can shape public perception, sometimes even before all the facts are known. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And let's not forget the impact on the families involved.
Of course.
They're not just dealing with this unimaginable tragedy,
Right.
but they're also being thrust into the spotlight, their lives dissected and debated by complete strangers,
Yeah, it's almost like a secondary trauma.
Yeah.
It raises a lot of ethical questions about how we consume true crime.
Oh, for sure.
Are we doing it responsibly? Are we aware of the potential harm that our fascination can cause?
Because it's easy to get caught up in the drama, the twists and turns of it all.
Right.
But we have to remember that these are real people, not just characters in a story, right?
Exactly.
The lives have been irrevocably changed by these events.
And that's what I hope our listeners take away from this deep dive.
Yeah.
Beyond the shocking details, beyond the courtroom drama, there are real human consequences. There's pain, there's loss, and there's this enduring question of why.
So as we wrap up our exploration of the Coleman family murders, what are some of the key takeaways for you? Like, what can we learn from this tragic story?
Well, for me, it's a reminder to be more discerning, to question assumptions, and to not be swayed by appearances.
Right.
It's also a cautionary tale about the seductive nature of ambition and the lengths that people will go to protect their image, even if it means sacrificing their integrity.
And perhaps most importantly, it's a call to empathy.
Yes.
To remember the victims.
Absolutely.
To acknowledge their pain and to try to be, more compassionate and understanding in our own lives.
Because at the end of the day, that's what truly matters, right? Our connections with each other, our capacity for kindness, and our commitment to building a world where tragedies like this, become less frequent.
Yeah.
Not just fodder for our fascination.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay human.